All right. So in this chapter, there is sort of a folk revival, and there's a lot of great singer-songwriters that sort of come back onto the scene. And there's some interesting guitar stuff that is happening too. And I think the person who sort of exemplifies this is James Taylor. He was always a fingerstyle guitar player, and he was certainly a folk guitarist. And so he sort of changed the way, he and other folks changed the way they used the guitar. So, for instance, so if you were strumming chords before, such as like, Bob Dylan, and you're playing, that's one way to do it. You're sort of just banging out those chords and strumming them, which is, traditionally how guitar campfire tunes and early folk music was. So what these guys were trying to do was sort of extend that range of the guitar, extend the things that you could do with it, and just frankly make it a little bit more interesting. So James Taylor's tune here, this is Fire and Rain. He's playing, first of all, he's using his fingers, so this allows you to get more notes. Basically, you can play arpeggiated chords is the term for it. They use in classical music. But basically, you're playing the same chords, but now you can sort of use those individual notes from the chord to spell the chord. So it gives just a little bit different texture. And maybe a little bit more interesting stuff for your ear to pick up on, or something that you can allude to with with the lyrics, or even with, the bass and, the string bass in the case of this tune, or, upright bass can sort of do something with your fingerstyle playing. So let me just show you a couple of these things here. So the intro here, these chords, another interesting thing that came back was James Taylor was using a capo, just like we did before. And he uses the capo a lot at the 3rd fret, and that's usually just a voice thing, something where your voice is more comfortable at. So again, what that does is just makes the guitar neck shorter. And then in this tune, he's using some chords, but he's using voicings that are not the voicings that are typical for guitar players. So he's using some more interesting shapes, basically. And then also too, he's just kind of improvising over these chords a little bit. He's sort of making this its own tune. And I'd argue if you listen to multiple recordings of this tune of him playing it, there are countless versions that he has played of this. So I don't think the way that I'm playing it here from the record is necessarily the way he always plays. In fact, I know it's not. So anyway, so the intro here, this is just the beginning of the tune where he sort of leads in this little harmonic progression, and he does it in a way that's just really interesting because it's not your typical way of just playing the chords, but he's playing some sort of melody. So anyway, so this is the start of it. So that's the intro, and then he starts to play through the chorus of this tune with playing these little shapes. This is an A major chord again, not a true A major, but an A major in this sense that he's playing this new shape that's up here when normally you'd play a chord somewhere down here, right? But he's choosing to voice that a little bit differently, so that gives it a little bit different character. And then he goes. He's playing this chord here as a G chord. That's just, again, it's transposed, of course. And then he has a D chord where he didn't do just a strumming pattern. He did. And then another thing that he does a lot of in this is he does hammer-ons. So what that is that's just a technique that guitarists were using to, again, just give a little bit more character to the chords. And a lot of times these were just sort of something that worked in a guitar way that sounds kind of cool. So You know, a lot of times in classical music they call it a suspension, but we just call it sort of in pop music. It's an added note to that chord. And then in the chorus, where he has this section where he's just sort of playing chords like a piano. So it's the, and then he goes back to the hammer-ons with the A chord, and then again, and all of that is, you know, he's still not losing anything in that, because now he can still play chords like a piano. And I think that's just another interesting aspect to this. It gives the performer a lot more freedom. And then lastly in the tune here, after you get through the second half of this thing here, he plays these same chords that he was doing earlier, but now he's strumming them. So he's just he's strumming the chord, and what he's doing is using the back of his hand sort of. And we call that a raschiato, or in classical guitar, that's a classical technique, but he's using his fingers basically, and he does use nails too, like I have on my hand. He's using his nails to sort of get the effect that you could do with the pick, but he chooses to do it like this, so then he has access to his fingers too. So anyhow, so this was common. So as you're listening to these pieces, these tunes in this chapter, listen to the new sort of acoustic guitar styles and new finger style stuff, because I think it's a departure from what they were doing in previous chapters with the guitar and just basic open chords.